Colleagues, hello. Glad to see you despite like this the start of this day, and thank you that you still find a possibility to join us. Today with us, Joachim, and Joachim actually is managing director in Expra, and he's a great, really expert in the questions of ERP systems in Europe, how they work, what are like strong sides, weak sides, what are like some issues that are really at this moment very interesting for us. Joachim, at this stage, Ukraine, we have like adopted already a framework work on waste management, and currently in the parliament we have like several draft laws on waste of packaging, and we are still like have not finalized them. And strong discussions between different like industries and different shareholders in which how we should like to adopt them, and what are like criteria for effective waste management organizations and so on. So we are really very, very grateful for you that you are ready to share with us like all your experience which you collected during all these years. So thank you very much. And guys, you could like wrote your questions in chat or raise your hand, and after Joachim's presentation you will be I hope you will be able to answer them. So Joachim, floor to you.
Thanks so much, dear Victoria, for the invitation, and I'm very happy to be with you. Of course, I would have preferred to be in Kiev again, and hopefully in the near future we can repeat this in person, because I think a few of you remember that I have been to Kiev in the past, I think twice, 2002, 2003, and guess the topic: how to implement the European Packaging Directive. So I think you were even not born, Victoria, in these days when the discussion started. It's a long-term discussion, and hopefully we will see in the next few years good progress, so that you can provide your inhabitants with a good system for their packaging waste as well. So if you agree, I would share my presentation so that we can go into the topic. Can you see it? I hope it's all fine. And yeah, as Victoria said, I'm in this EPR business since a long time. It's nearly 32 years ago when I had by chance the pleasure to work for the Ministry of Environment in Germany, when they were in Bonn located, when Bonn was still the capital of Germany. And by the way, the Ministry of Environment is still located in Bonn. So not all ministries moved to Berlin, because we in Germany, we believe not in a centralized approach like in France. We have a decentralized approach of many authorities, so that the whole of Germany is somehow participating in the authorities and not only one city. Yeah, so I'm a long term in EPR. I had the pleasure to see a lot of systems which have been founded, which have been growing. I was for the first 13 years a member of the German Green Dot system as well. So I knew how difficult it is to start something. But on the other side, it is a fantastic adventure to start something and to try and to test and to be brave enough. I know that all the starting people are quite enthusiastic, and over the years sometimes we lose this enthusiasm. So I think you are just in the beginning stage, and I'm very sure within the next years you can spend your enthusiasm in building up a good system. EXPRA, Extended Producer Responsibility Alliance, we are a club of, in the mean, 34 producer responsibility organizations, with a specific that my members are owned by the so-called obliged industry. So by the Procter & Gamble's, by the Coca-Colas, by the Pepsis of this world. They are owning my members, and my members work on a non-for-profit basis. This is important because in some countries you have different approaches as well, where waste management companies are owning the PRO as well, and so on. So that's why we are specific in our setup. As you can see, most of our members are coming from the European Union, but we have members from other European countries, even members now from South America, Chile and Colombia, from Australia, New Zealand, and 2 members from Canada as well. So a quite rich composition of situations. So that the different areas where you can apply EPR, we can learn a lot from this, because not every country is like Germany or Belgium and so on. And so you cannot copy paste the concept that is working in one country. You can always try to understand what is working where, under which conditions, and then you can try to see what is best fitting into our situation. And then you can take a piece here and can take a piece there. Although EXPA is a quite small association, we are just three people working for EXPA, we believe a lot in cooperation, so that you can see we are trying to cooperate with many other associations, many other organizations and authorities, because only together we can move something, because everyone has a specific expertise. And bringing all these expertises together, this is the model of success. So be always careful if someone is coming to your country and if he's telling you, I have the solution, then he has the solution for himself or for herself, but not for your country. So I think this is very important to have this in mind, because in the end, this is something we don't want to see. This is something we have to fight. For various reasons, we could only discuss about this slide for an hour or 2 hours for the background. Why is this happening? But this is something we have to stop, and we believe that extended producer responsibility is one tool, one of many tools which are able to fight such a situation and to avoid that our packaging is leaking into the environment. Just to remember, extended producer responsibility from a concept is putting an individual responsibility on a company for their products, for their packaging they are putting on the market. So usually, or minimum, it is a financial responsibility, but usually in the best practices, it is also an operational responsibility, so that we as industry can bring our knowledge, our expertise into the management of packaging as well. Of course, it does not make sense if each company tries to fulfill the obligation of its own, especially for packaging, where the packaging are ending up at millions of places. So in these situations, it makes a lot of sense to work jointly together and to found the kind of self-help organization which has to fulfill the obligations on your behalf. We call it producer responsibility organization. But some of the obligations, some of the responsibility will always stay with the company. For example, that you design your packaging in a way that the packaging can be recycled, that it is environmentally the best option. A PRO cannot take this responsibility from you. We can advise you, we can help you with information, but in the end, it is the decision of a company which packaging they are using. So parts of it can be transferred to a producer responsibility organization. And also, as I already started in the beginning, EPR is a concept. So it is unfortunately not a business plan or a franchise. So I cannot send you a 200-pager and you know exactly what you will have to do. Because in the end, EPR depends a lot on the situations. So in Europe, in the European Union, and hopefully you will become a member of the European Union within the next years as well. You have an overarching legislation with some rules, especially for EPR with the Waste Framework Directive, where you have in Article 8A the famous minimum requirements for EPR. But still there is room for maneuver for a national country or even for a provincial country like in Canada, so that you can adapt it or expand it or change it a bit. And then, of course, it depends how industry is setting up the PRO. There are again some different approaches possible. And finally, of course, it depends on your local authorities. Very often local authorities have a say how the collection is done exactly at their district. Very simple, whether you use a container, whether you use a bin, whether you use a bag. So just three simple differences which normally the local authorities can decide in many countries. You should do it in the best way, local authorities and the PRO together, to find the best system for the district, but also from an higher point of view for the whole country. And then you see that each system is looking a little bit different from country to country. If you have founded such a PRO, the usual tasks of a PRO is to ensure that there is a convenient and efficient collection, sorting, and recycling infrastructure in your country, so that for all the packaging you collect, you are able to sort them in the sorting plant. And what you sort out, there should be a recycling plant existing as well. So this might sound simple, but in the end, if you try to pass it to reality, it is often not so easy. The second part is, of course, to bring transparency into the system, so that the inhabitants, but also that industry who is paying the bill, that they understand what is happening to the packaging. And as more transparency you're able to bring into the system, as more trust you have. And if you ask people to do an additional effort to sort their packaging and not to put waste into the bin or packaging into the waste bin and so on, they need to believe in the system. They need to believe I'm doing something positive. This means trust, this means transparency. And the same more or less for the companies who are paying the bill. If they don't know what is happening to the packaging, they're not really happy to pay the bill. If they know this is for something good, and in the end I might even get back recyclates for my new packaging, and then they trust in the system, they are more or less happy to pay, they support the system, and then the system can work in the country. A good PRO is also helping, as I said, to help the value chain to understand which packaging can be sorted and recycled, because there are always options. There are always a lot of options how a packaging can be designed. And the packaging producers and the packaging users, like the brand owners, they should know what are my consequences if I use a specific packaging. Simple example, if I have a glass bottle and I use as a cap a ceramic cap, you should know that this is destroying the whole glass recycling. So such a packaging is completely unrecyclable. It's an easy information, but the PRO can help the value chain to understand it. Of course, collect the necessary funding. Again, and it sounds easy, you have to collect enough money for the purpose, but to understand the costs, how much it costs, and to predict it even 1 or 2, 3 years in advance. This is a quite difficult exercise and needs a lot of expertise and knowledge. So you don't over-collect money, but the worst thing is that you underfund your system, because then you really run into a big problem. Examples: European Union, we have the minimum recycling targets, which are somehow dictating how the system has to look like, how much you have to invest in the system, how optimum it has to be. And in the meantime, if you see, we started or we had for many years the 25% recycling target for plastic. Now it moved to 50%, and so you can understand that the system has to be designed in a totally different way. For 50% recycling in 25, 55% in 2030, you have to ensure more or less that you are targeting all plastics, especially since we changed the measurement point for recycling. In the past, measurement was taking place after sorting at the front door of a recycler. In the meantime, we have to open the door, go through the recycling plant until the point of extrusion. And if you have never seen a recycling plant, you will wonder how much activities are taking place between the entrance door and the extruder. There's another sorting, there's a mixing, sometimes even with virgin material, and to design the right input to the extruder. So you measure there, and there's usually a difference depending on the plastic between 5 and 25% in the recycling performance. So increasing from 25 to 50% has been even more challenging because we changed the measurement point of recycling, so that we have to apply the best practice, the 80-80-80 rule, to be able to fulfill the target. That means we have to collect minimum 80% of all plastic packaging put on the market. From this 80%, we have to sort out minimum 80%, and then from the sorted out fraction, you have to recycle minimum 80%. Again, that sounds easy, but in practice, this is really a challenge to succeed. What have the countries achieved after 30 years of packaging directive in Europe in the meantime? From an all material point of view, I think it looks quite good. So most of the countries are close to fulfill the 25 targets. And more or less not really depending on the model. So the first 5 countries, they have a single PRO. So you could say that this is a model of success, minimum to start with a single PRO to coordinate the setting up of the infrastructure for the whole country. The countries in light green are countries with a competitive system, so a little bit not as good as the other ones, but you can see a good performance if you design it in the right way as well. Interestingly, we have 2 countries here where the government has implemented a packaging tax, Denmark and Hungary, and you can see that they are not the top performers. Denmark, in the meantime, will change now to a normal EPR system. Hungary, I lost hope, I have to say. They believe in the government, they don't believe in industry, so I think they will stay with their very special system, which is not performing, I have to say. For plastics, the situation is a little bit more challenging, more difficult, because you see only a very few countries are close to the target in 25. Many countries really have problems. And interestingly, it does not depend whether the country has a deposit system for bottles or not. See Denmark, Sweden, Finland, they still have a long way to go. So if you have a deposit system, you might have a solution for a small part of the whole packaging, 10 to 20%, but the overall part, you still have to manage with separate collection, and this is the big part. So you have to especially take care of the big part to be able to fulfill the targets. As I said, EPR is a concept and not a business plan. So at the moment, besides the fact we have these minimum requirements for EPR, everything is possible. So you have several countries where you have a single PRO or a very dominating PRO. You have some countries with competing PROs. Our friends from the UK, of course, had to invent something completely different. They trade paper. So industry has to buy certificates from recyclers. Sometimes you wonder how often the certificates have been copied, but you would only say this if you are a bad guy. And I'm not a bad guy. So they will change the system now more or less to a normal EPR system in the future, because in the end, the infrastructure was not developed. So perhaps not a system to follow. We have some countries where municipalities are involved in everything in the collection, sorting, and recycling, and industry is more or less only paying a bill. On the other side, we have systems where municipalities are not anymore involved in collection, sorting, and recycling, like in Germany and Austria, and there the PROs are responsible to call for tender and to organize the collection, sorting, and recycling. We still have full cost, shared cost, incentive costs. We have special systems for commercial packaging or a system for all the packaging together. So a big variety, I would say, of experiences from which you might choose the best option for Ukraine. I explained this. Nevertheless, from all the various experiences, from all the various approaches, I think we were able to draw some conclusions that should be taken into account. An important matter is that in your legislation, you should have a clear separation of the roles and responsibilities of the various actors. Again, that might sound easy. Of course, a legislation has to be clear. But if you see it in the various countries, this is missing very often. Who has to do what? Who has to pay for what, under which conditions? So this is very important, and my advice that you pass this message to your government and parliament as well, that they should spend some brain to determine who has to do what in your system. We believe, as the setup of EXPRA, of course, that the ownership of the PRO should be limited to obliged producers and the value chain, retailers, perhaps packaging producers as well, but especially not to those who are receiving money. Because if we think that there is a conflict of interest. If those who are receiving money can decide on which conditions the money is paid, I think you have a problem there. So again, there should be a clear split. Who pays the bill, he can order the music as well. That's for us, this is a crucial point. And the consequence of being owned by producers is, of course, the non-profit setup as well, because the money should stay within the system. It should not be paid to the owners. And we should always try to optimize the system, to set up new infrastructure, and not only to rely on the existing ones. Ambitious, but realistic targets. So it is always a good that industry is kicked a bit by the government, by ambitious targets. But if you have the feeling that from the very beginning you will never be able to reach the targets, then this is a big demotivation as well. So there should be a good balance between ambition and reality. Reporting obligations for all the actors of the packaging life cycle. There should be no black holes in the system. So also in the collection, sorting, and recycling, there have to be obligations to report and to bring transparency to the activities, to the yields, how much are the losses, and so on. This should not stay a business secret. If you run a very old-fashioned, bad recycling performance, it is questionable whether you should receive the material so that as much as possible is staying in the economic circle. This is motivating to upgrade the existing facilities as well, so that they are working to the state of the art. Equal treatment of producers, very important matter as well, sometimes forgotten in competitive approaches. For the same packaging, a company should pay the same amount of money, whether the company is big or whether the company is small, because the environmental costs are exactly the same, not depending on the size of the producer. Information and education of the consumer should be within the scope and within the financial scope of the PRO as well, because they somehow take the most important part of the system. They do the extra sorting, they do the extra step, not to put it in the environment, not to put it in the waste bin, but to put the packaging in the right bin. So they have to be informed, they have to be educated from the kindergarten to the primary schools, so that they believe in the system. Transparency I talked about. If third parties receive funding, there should be minimum requirements and conditions, so that the good guys that are doing a good job get more money than those who are not doing the optimum job, even if they could do the optimum job. Fee modulation, a very fancy word at the moment. We think that this should be the second step. So the first modeling should be with regard to the packaging material, and to give the right and fair costs passing to each of the material is already a big step and a difficult step in the beginning. And once you have done this, once you have the experience, you should modulate the fees, for example, with regard to the recyclability, so that the clear PET bottle, as an easy example, which is very easy to collect and to recycle, pays a lower fee than an opaque PET bottle, which is only recyclable under certain conditions. And finally, very important, often forgotten, the government and the authorities, their role is not only to make the legislation. They have another important role, which is to monitor, to oversight, and to enforce the legislation. Extremely important to avoid free riding, and if you allow more than one PRO, to ensure that the PROs play a fair game. We have seen a lot of examples in Germany, for example, where this was going totally out of control. Like 10 years ago in 2014, 700,000 tons of plastic were reported and paid, and over 2 million tons were collected. You see, there was a little problem which nearly made the whole system collapsing. So as more freedom you give to industry, as more strict conditions you have to apply and to see, and you have then to punish the bad guys. I think that's a very important message to the government, that they cannot only put legislation in place, they have to do the next step as well. Luckily, we were able 6 years ago, when the Waste Framework Directive was amended, to put a lot of our beliefs. We convinced the Commission, the Parliament, the Member States. They said, yes, a lot of golden rules we will put in the legislation as minimum requirements as well. So that should be an inspiration for your government as well, to make the right choices. You can see here roles and responsibilities. As I said, equal treatment of producers. If you allow competition, you have to have an independent organization authority to oversee this competition, for example. A best practice, so to show you what is possible, I've chosen here Italy, and I think from our perception, we do not think that Italy is the best country in the world to tackle waste. I only say Mafia and Naples and Roma and so on. But you see what is possible if you have a good system, a good setup in the system. They started 25 years ago with lower than 10% plastic recycling. And now they are over 50% with the new measurement point. So you see a constant investment in infrastructure, in education, and these are the results. So you can make it happen if you have a good system, even in a difficult country. And I would say the north of Italy, the area Milano, Genoa, and so on, they are even together with Flanders, the Dutch-speaking part of Belgium, they are the #1 in the performance all over Europe. So, to close, just to say what I believe should be the best system and what could be an inspiration for you. In an optimum system, the PRO is somehow in the middle of the circle, of the packaging life circle. And the job is to keep this circle turning. In good times when the prices for the materials are high, but even in bad times when the prices for the collected material is low. To collect the necessary funding from obligated companies, mostly the fillers and the bottlers, and to pass it to the collection, sorting, and recycling. But also to work with all these stakeholders, to understand their role, to analyze how could they do the role better, like with the packaging manufacturers and the fillers and the bottler, which packaging could be better collected, sorted, and recycled? Can we make a multi-layer flexible packaging? Is there a solution to make a multi-material flexible packaging to a monomaterial? And there are a lot of examples. So to advise the packaging manufacturers how to improve the packaging so that later on we don't have problems with the sorting and the recycling of such packaging. As I said, to work with the consumers as well, so that they believe in the system and do the right thing, and so on. So a lot of important roles so that the system has a grip on the system, so that they are not only standing aside, pay the bill, that's it. That does not work in the best way, as experience has shown. And my role model at the moment is our member in Belgium. And to explain why, in the first 20 years in Belgium, the Belgians only collected rigid plastics, because for rigid plastics, for most of the rigid plastics, you could find an application later on. So there was a chance that the recyclates were used. For flexible packaging, even for some rigid packaging like PET trays, there was, in the end, there was no choice than to send it to a cement kiln or to build some tubes and so on. In 2018, 2019, they decided we have to collect all plastic packaging. Industry said that for all packaging we put on the market, we have to find a solution. So if you collect more and new things, you need, of course, a new sorting plant, which is able to sort out the additional packaging. So they took the decision, we need new 5 sorting plants. So they called for tender for the waste management industry and said, who is interested to build a sorting plant? You will get a 9 years contract with certain financial conditions. And there was big interest of the waste management industry. So 5 partners were chosen. These sorting plants are built and up and running since last year. So just 2 years later, after the call for tender. And the same is now happening with new recycling plants for flexible packaging, for PET trays, for opaque PET bottles, and so on. So the last one, the 5th one, is just being built at the moment. There were some media in the last weeks that they are starting now to build the plants for the recycling of PET trays. Will be the biggest PET tray recycling plant in Europe. So you see, within a quite short time, you were able to upgrade your system. Money was no problem somehow, because with long-term contracts, the waste management industry is happy to invest. you can collect a little bit more money from your members to be able to finance over 9 years these new activities. And so in the optimum case at the moment, they are able to collect 16 materials and sort them out. They even collect and sort now the Nespresso coffee capsules, but also flexible film, 3 different bottles and so on. So a lot is possible, and the results are the best in Europe. Best practice with regards to eco-design, design for recycling, you can find in the Netherlands. Part of the EPR is a special institute for sustainable packaging. I think with 13 packaging engineers that are helping especially mid-size and small companies how they can upgrade their packaging. And of course, communication, even in the TV, national campaigns to support. And my favorite are always the kids. I participated in many activities myself as well, working with the kids because they can change or they can learn their behavior from the very beginning. If you have my age, it is more difficult to change your behavior. But if you have the kids as ambassador, they will tell you, no, this is the wrong bin, mommy. You have to put it in a different bin. So you can see here pictures from Malta, from Turkey even, and so on. So from a lot of countries where the kids are in the focus of the system to educate them in the right way. Unfortunately, we still have to support litter, anti-litter campaigns, collect litter from the environment. This is necessary. Hopefully one day not. But at the moment, some people really behave in an awful way, so that we have to clean after them. Just to conclude, I think US industry, US decision takers, you have to ask yourself some question. What do US industry, what do you want to achieve? Who should be in the driver's seat? And is EPR for you a responsibility or is it an obligation? And the governance and the structure of your EPR will depend on your answers. Like, again, to choose the example from Belgium, their industry has said, what do we want to achieve? We want a convenient system for all inhabitants, for all our packaging, solving the packaging problem. And they want to drive the change and be part of the solutions and to take the decisions when it is due to take a decision. They didn't want to outsource it to a third party. And that's why they see it as responsibilities. They want to do it. And they are totally opposing just to pay the money. They don't see it as a tax. They don't want to get rid of it by signing a check and that's it. So this is a possibility. Otherwise, you could say, oh, in the end, we just want to fulfill the targets from the government. That's it. Setting legislation, working on legislation and ambition. This is not our job. We want to sell products to the consumer. That's it. And we pay what is necessary and do not want to be bothered anymore. So these are the two extremes somehow, the positive approach and the negative approach. So you will have to think about, what do you want? Do you as industry, what do you want for your country and for your inhabitants? So that would be my recommendation, to think about it. Perhaps you would like to do a workshop on it and so on, to come to a good conclusion. And once you have the answers, I think then it will be obvious what systems you would try to lobby for with your government. And in the end, the positive news, don't forget, what we do has really positive effects. For example, on the fight against climate change, even by all our systems which are not optimized with regard to CO2 performance. We are saving minimum 45 kilo per inhabitant per year at the moment, which could be, if we would apply more modern technology, probably tripled or quadrupled in the near future. So a lot of positive things, even with regard to climate change, can be done. Not only recycling and producing recyclates. Thanks a lot.
Joachim, thank you very much. Great presentation. I personally have several questions. Colleagues, you also don't be shy. Take this opportunity to raise your hand. But the first question from my side is regarding you provided an experience of Italy that quite good, shown quite good results in collecting different types of packaging waste. So the question is how many organizations of extended producers responsibility are in Italy, and maybe to provide like wide what is your according to your opinion, what is like the optimal amount of collective management organization? Because currently in Ukraine we have like a lot of disputes on this issue, even inside the industry, because for instance in some draft laws that are currently in the parliament, they propose to introduce some quotas that, for instance, you could create extended producers responsibility organization only if you collect at least 30% of all waste that are like produced in the country. And we have like huge discussions because some representatives say that like optimal system, it should be like one organization, minimum 2 organizations. At the other side, like representatives of other companies, other industries, they insist that competition is still better and it could like lead to lower like costs and better competition, but better results. So what are your additional ideas on this topic?
Yeah. Especially if you start a system, I think you have an incredible amount of investments to take and decisions to take. So you will have to provide within a few years the whole of the Ukraine with a collection, sorting, and recycling system. I have seen that as more people you have around the table taking the same decisions, as more complex it will be to do the right decision. If you have one entity to be able to collect the money, then they can take investment decisions quite easier, because the majority of the costs of a separate collection system is caused by the collection, usually 70 to 80%, plus then the costs for a sorting plant. So especially if you, as most of the countries have a joint collection system, it doesn't matter how many PROs you have, you will have to share the costs for the collection. So the competition will take place in maximum 20 to 30% of the costs. But of course, you cannot save 20, 30% of the costs as well, because you still have to finance sorting, recycling, your stuff, and so on. So you might be able to be cheaper if you are optimum 3 to 5% than your competitor. But of course, you could be much cheaper if you are, how I call it, creative in your reporting, so that you are able to save money on the collection costs. So that's why that's happened in Germany when competition was introduced, with my example that only 700,000 tons were reported and paid, but 2 million tons were collected. So that's why you usually have to have on top, on the different PROs, an entity which is controlling, monitoring, and enforcing what the PROs are doing. By the way, in Germany, I think a cost of 20 million euros a year for this overarching entity, which you will have to take into account in your complete bill as well. So I have not seen one country where competition has led to lower prices and to a better performance. It is important to have competition on the operational level, which collector you choose, which sorter you choose, because there are the costs. In the administration part, the costs are marginal. 1-2% of the overall costs are caused by the administration of the system. So you don't save too much money. And it is up to industry, of course. If you are sitting in the board of your system, you can control how fat the system is or how lazy and so on. So I know from my members where the retailers, where the brand owners are sitting in their board, they always feel the whip of becoming more efficient. So because the ones who are paying are controlling what the system is doing. So that's why, especially, let's say, especially for the first 10 years, when you have to set up the system, have to take all the decisions with the government, with the local authorities, and so on. My advice would be not to start in a complex way, but to start in a relatively easy way in the beginning. And if you are still unhappy with the system, then you could try later on to add more PROs. But again, I did not see big improvements all over the countries.
And under easier, you mean like not so many competing organizations, but like
yes.
maximum
to start with one PRO, because otherwise how can you be cheaper if you avoid investments? If you don't invest in your sorting centers and so on, then you are cheaper than your competitor. But this is not the sense. And as far as I know, as soon as Ukraine will be a member of the European Union, you will have the same targets. So have fun in recycling 55% of plastics. You need a very good infrastructure, and this takes a lot of time and a lot of money. So that's why I think you should not start the difficult way.
And regarding infrastructure, all these like plants that are engaged into recycling, we had an idea that it's like a separate industry who is investing, or government, or it's still like producers' responsibility somehow also to support creation of this infrastructure. How it's like usually works?
Usually you can combine the EPR fees with some funding projects. So if you build a new sorting center, there is often the chance to get funding from your national government or from the European Union. There are special funds that help you to set up infrastructure. That is usually the exercise of the PRO together with the waste management company, how to design the funding in an optimum way. So especially in the beginning, usually you can use additional funding from authorities to build a new infrastructure.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, maybe someone of you has already some questions, ideas, or I could continue my list of questions. Okay. Then another like issue that is currently very like disputed in Ukrainian society, this time is dispute between like industry and like state authorities, is targets. Because actually you mentioned this topic, and our government seems that it's like quite very ambitious, and they propose like this to start from such collecting minimum collecting targets that from our perspective are too ambitious and will be impossible to reach, and we vice versa as an industry we propose to start with something minimum, at least during the first years, to launch the system, and especially to take into account all like other difficulties that are currently in Ukraine. And actually our argument is that like to this like huge targets, the European Union, they made quite a long road, yeah, and they were not like reached in a moment. So from your perspective, what could be like minimum collecting targets? Could be good minimum collected targets for Ukraine at this moment.
Yeah, I even cannot imagine how you are able to start this adventure now with all the mess. So this is really, I'm really admiring all of you for this. But I think it would make sense to have a long-term plan. When do you intend to comply after negotiations with the European Union with the targets of EU's legislation nowadays? And then you should make a agreement somehow how to reach this long-term target. That would be my advice, because especially in the beginning, probably you will need more pilot projects to better understand what is working and not working and so on. And then at a certain moment, it will be easier to expand. So probably instead of recycling targets, to agree on how many people should be provided with separate collection in the first step, because this is the start of all. And then if you outreach step by step to most of the people, then you will have enough material collected to be sorted, to be recycled, to fulfill the recycling targets. But I would think that it would most sense to start to agree on the coverage of the country.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I see we have
it took the European Union 30 years. We started in 94 with 15% targets, and then 2004 it was increased to 22.5, and now we are at 50. So a long time with very small steps. So that's what you should remind your government as well, of course. That's the European Union did not do it like this as well, and
like
still
this.
several countries are lagging behind. Your neighboring country, Romania, and so on. They are suffering a lot, and no one knows what is happening to the packaging. Competing PROs, industry is only paying, industry has no grip on the system. So they, from my point of view, and sorry to my Romanian friends, they showed it how you should not do it. So take it as anti-example.
Thank you very much. I see we have a quite big comment from Bogdan. Bogdan, maybe you will take this opportunity and speak aloud.
Yeah, sure. I just showed our comment since I have unstable internet connection due to morning adventures. My name is Bogdan. I'm from Coca-Cola Hellenic. We would like to draw attention to the new draft law on packaging and packaging waste, namely point 5 of Article 16. It provides for the acceptance of separate collection, sorting, and storage before recycling of packaging waste by business entities in the waste management sector directly. So without contacts with the producer responsibility organization, PROs. This means that without the knowledge of the PROs, waste that requiring the least costly management, such as commercial waste, or the most economically attractive types of packaging, namely PET, paper, etc., will be collected. Moreover, the mass of such rates for packaging waste, by including the mass of such waste for proportionate adjustment of minimum recycling rates, even though recycling confirmation is not required. In our opinion, this violates the principles of extended producer responsibility regarding the accountability for achieving recycling targets for packaging declared by the producers of the packaged products. Since according to the definitions in point 33 of the law of Ukraine on waste management, the responsibility for managing the waste stage is assigned to the producers of packaged products. Furthermore, the provisions introduces a privileged, we estimate as corrupt features, status for certain business entities by giving them the right to collect and recycle most economically beneficial types of packaging waste without knowledge of the PROs, leaving the PROs to manage the most costly packaging waste. This will create conditions for the resale of such waste and demotivate the establishment of separate collection system for packaging waste within a municipal solid waste in local communities. Additionally, the possibility for the central executive bodies to adjust the minimum recycling targets set by the law appears questionable to us. So,
yeah, I can fully agree to you. So this seems that one sector has a very good entrance to the political parties more than the others. This is clearly in the benefit of one sector, which is just one sector. So if you design the system in an unbalanced way, then you will end up with a mess. So this sounds like total untransparency. So I would, as brand owners and retailers, I would strongly oppose such an approach. Of course, we all should continue to be able to make money. So waste management companies should continue to be able to make a good profit. I think that is the brand owners should continue to make profit, the retailers, the waste management industry, everybody. But in such an approach, it seems that the brand owners are the idiots and they will have fun. So this is a very, very unbalanced solution, which is not successful. I mentioned your neighboring country, and they have a very unbalanced approach as well. And you see there are the last or the second last of the performance, and even if it is not a cheap solution, so they have a bad performance, it is a quite expensive system, and in the end no one knows what is happening to the packaging. So I would support all your claims that this is not a success model. This is a model to make a few people rich, and I think we should not make by environmental matters a few people rich. We should benefit our inhabitants. That's the target.
yeah, thank you for your comment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Guys, additional questions? Ivan, maybe from your side? Okay, then I will take this opportunity to thank you one more time for Yjoachim for making this great presentation. We will share this presentation as well as a video recording of our today's meeting with all the participants that were interested in this meeting. Also, special thanks for my colleagues from Procter & Gamble who actually initiated and helped us in making first contacts and organizing this meeting. I think it definitely was very, very useful, and I believe that in future we will have maybe additional meetings, and maybe someday organizations of producers' responsibility Ukrainian will be part of your organization as well.
Yeah. Yes, that would have been my next sentence, to say that hopefully we can welcome a member from the Ukraine in EXPA as well. We are working together since many years with Ukrapek, so we tried already to support a bit, but we are of course willing to support all of you so that you find the best solution for the Ukraine. And good luck, and hope to see you soon, live and in color in Kiev. All the best.
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a safe day, everyone.
You too.
Bye.
All the best. Bye. Bye.